This video will contain some flashing lights, thanks to a few bugged textures. I'll try to avoid keeping anything on screen for too long, but you have been warned. That is unedited audio from the game. It's not one of my bits. Greetings, travelers. Welcome to Greenvale. For the uninitiated, Deadly Premonition is perhaps the cult classic survival horror video game. Maybe even the cult classic video game in parentheses general. It sits at a comfortable aggregate score of 68 on Metacritic and therefore has become the ultimate litmus test of any game's critic. This is because it will challenge every notion of what someone typically believes makes a good video game. Depending on how they structure their criticism, it will reveal how they look at video games as a whole. Please don't look at me. Thanks to countless technical problems and combat sequences that would likely cause me to pass out at my desk on one of my more sleep-deprived days, it is not a game for the faint of heart, or for people who enjoy graphical fidelity. It is impressive how they can make a game this crusty run this poorly, innovating in a space that only Game Freak would surpass years later. In spite of spoiling just how incredibly terrible parts of this game are, subjectivity implied, it somehow found a hole made just for itself in the cultural zeitgeist. The only way to start talking about Deadly Premonition is to start somewhere, so let's briefly look at its history. Deadly Premonition was released in February 2010, although it had been through development hell to get to that point. Originally a project under the name Rainy Woods, development initially started in 2005 with documents dating back to 2004. It was set to be a video game heavily inspired by Twin Peaks, a TV series created by none other than David Lynch and Mark Frost, along with everyone else listed on the credits. Twin Peaks is a surreal murder mystery drama that takes place in a small Pacific Northwest town called Twin Peaks. Rainy Woods was a surreal murder mystery drama that took place in a small Pacific Northwest town called... Hey, wait a minute, said everyone at its Tokyo Game Show teaser in 2007. This is just Twin Peaks. This inspiration is still incredibly evident in the final game. Everything from the uncanny tone to gaining its own cult following. But as part of repitching the game, they went back and rewrote the entirety of the main character and scrapped large portions of the narrative in an attempt to make itself more original. I could make a joke about my favorite game to hate on, but I will refrain for once. As part of this rewrite, they also toned down some of its more graphic scenes, and it was almost cancelled 4 times. Its physics engine caused more problems than positives, its lighting and shadow system became a massive technical time waster, its code filled with memory allocation problems, and the studio's lack of a sound department didn't make things any smoother. To top it off, they added in all the combat last minute, believing that the game wouldn't sell otherwise. In spite of its challenges, the lead director persevered and managed to get the game published in North America exclusively for the Xbox 360 for the low price of $20, figuring that people might buy it purely on impulse. After the general public got their hands on it, it was met with horrible reviews, citing technical problems and general gameplay dissatisfaction. About a week or two later, and people actually stuck with the game in order to finish it, some positive reviews started to roll in, realizing its hidden greatness. A game with a surprisingly fun cast of characters, going on unhinged adventures, whose bizarre tone actually enhances the experience. Stephanie Sterling even gave it a 10 out of 10. It would then be released for the PlayStation 3 a month later in Japan, under the name red seed's profile, making this a reverse biohazard situation. The man who put his heart and soul into trying to faithfully recreate a small town in the Pacific Northwest and responsible for writing 80% of the game's dialogue according to himself is SWERY, a man whose whole career is based off of cult classics stemming from this hidden gem. He really can't miss, and I really need to play Hotel Barcelona. And note that Suda51, another infamous name in game development, was also involved with that project. What's the problem? They used generative AI for parts of the audio in that game? Oh, for fuck's sake. At least it's supposedly getting removed. No video game is ever made by one singular person, but SWERY is a man with a very strong vision for his projects. I'm not too sure how good his eyesight is, but he certainly insists on using it. With that brief history out of the way, stolen from a couple of articles I found by looking up sources on Wikipedia, one of which was a repost of this game's post-mortem, it is time for the hardest part of this project: getting this thing to run on a PC. As mentioned, this is originally a 360 game that got a PS3 port. Once it had acquired its cult following, they would re-release the director's cut on PC in 2013, also known as the version that I played for this video. The director's cut adds some extra content, which I could not find documented online, other than the parts where an old man talks as if the game is all a distant memory. I do not own the original game, so I can't confirm what's different. But I do know that it cranks the difficulty all the way up to oh my god, as every cutscene becomes a boss fight of RNG manipulation, prayer power, and sheer will, all for the sake of hoping that the game doesn't crash. My first playthrough was one of the most tense horror experiences of my entire life, because going for more than 10 minutes without saving was pure, unadulterated anal clenching. If you think that sounds bad, it used to be even worse before it was patched one time to add in controller support. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is install DP-Fix. This allows the game to run at higher resolutions and can allow many settings to be changed outside of the game. The game is still going to crash, just a little less frequently than before. If you install that first and boot the game up, the next thing you will likely realize is the game running at an absolutely immaculate 14 frames per second. And if you play on a controller, the X and Y coordinates are going to be swapped. It's a very religious experience to boot up Deadly Premonition for the first time. To fix the initial FPS issues, simply restart your PC using the restart option. Yes, it matters. Shut up, Linux users. The next time the game boots up, it should run much better. To fix the controller problems, simply use Steam's controller settings to set the game's specific inputs to be inverted, thus turning two wrongs into a right. After all that, it's still not going to be enough. We also have to make sure to run on Windows XP Compatibility Pack 3. At least that's what I used, but I have heard other compatibility settings might work better. If the game ever crashes multiple times in the same spot, try booting it up with a different one to get past it. I also capped the frame rate at 60 FPS, both in the DP-Fix ini file and in my GPU settings, and attempted to get it to use up to 4 GB of RAM. With all of this, the game still had a high probability of crashing on any given cutscene. Finally, I once again used DP-Fix to set the game to windowed mode with forced borderless enabled, ensured that the actual game settings had full screen disabled, and lo and behold, this fixed 97% of my game crashes. It was not perfect, but I could almost, kinda, play the game. Shout out to user Nightbreed on Steam, because it's their guide that worked for my particular version of the game. I'll pin the thread in a comment along with all the other resources I perused to get the game to almost work. The best part is that the game is so unstable that every player's PC will be uniquely broken. This is just what worked for me. Visual glitches are still common, but that's a massive upgrade over the game literally bricking itself at a moment's notice. I was careful not to say this fixed all of my crashes, so the last trick I'm going to mention for any real gamer who wants to play the game themselves is that a crash can still happen on certain loading zones. For me, it was exiting the diner in particular. If a crash happens more than once after a reload in a spot like this and it is not caused by a cutscene, try smoking a cigarette to pass some time before exiting, and that usually works. With all of these tricks, I was able to complete the game last year, but my aiming was still completely broken. I didn't know this until a friend saw me playing and asked me why I was constantly re-aiming down sights to target enemies. I said, because Deadly Premonition has a weird aiming gimmick where I have to re-aim in the general direction of enemies and then make fine adjustments to land those sweet headshots. As it turns out, I should have been able to aim beyond this small rectangle of where the game initially points itself after pulling out a gun. Only Deadly Premonition can be a game so jank that a completely bugged system seemed to only be a gameplay quirk. This was mostly fine until I needed to shoot something that wasn't an enemy, but I can confirm the entire game can be beaten with the aiming bug. It just requires a little bit of human ingenuity. I'm sure someone's getting ready to say it because every help thread mentions it. I did try every different compatibility mode in an attempt to fix aiming. None of them worked. I was fully ready to play the whole game this way a second time through in order to get footage, but when I booted the game up, to my surprise, I could just aim like normal. As a person who doesn't use his computer science degree, this kind of technical fix is enough to get me paranoid and figure out which virus attached to an old school eroge managed to break my system in such a way to fix Deadly Premonition. Then I remembered the only change I have made since the last time I played. I upgraded to Windows 11. Microsoft didn't advertise that as a benefit, and if you told me that Deadly Premonition of all games would work better for me on Windows 11, I would have expected you to follow that up by saying that hell is real and I'm not being sent there. I know how insane all this sounds, but a little witchcraft to get the game to run is just a rite of passage at this point. Once again, none of this means it will work for you. The Switch port is also its own disaster that I don't want to elaborate on here, but I think it might crash a little less. At this point, plenty of people are going to wonder why anyone would be willing to jump through this many hoops just to play a controversial video game. But when it regularly goes on sale for $2, including tax, it's probably one of the best values in gaming. Headache medicine not included. Upon booting up the game, a cutscene starts with a couple of kids stumbling upon a dead body at what appears to be some kind of cult-like sacrifice. The cops show up, and everyone is very sad. The premise is pretty straightforward. A murder has taken place, and it's someone's job to figure out who it was and why. Our actual story starts here, answering the question of whose job it was to solve the case. An old man begins telling his granddaughter a story.
Yes, of course. You've been waiting a long time for this, so how about a special one?
Thus giving us our central quote that will be referenced for the entire game.
At times, we must purge things from this world because they should not exist. Even if it means losing someone that you love.
From the get-go, we are already greeted with one of Deadly Premonition's most defining characteristics: completely abrupt tonal shifts. In a traditional piece of media, there would usually be an effort to try and maintain a similar tone throughout a scene. Deadly Premonition challenges this concept by saying, "How funny would it be if we started playing the goofy music right now?" I recognize these kids from the opening cutscene in this strange red room. This dreamlike space is where the game gives its basic control tutorials, which is a choice I can really get behind. Our titular hero puts his hand up to his ear as if he has a Secret Service earpiece and asks for Zack.
Zack, can you hear me? It's me, York.
Only for this to prompt the player to input a response, immediately revealing one of this game's core narrative gimmicks. We, the player, are controlling Zack, a voice inside of the head of this other guy who's actually interacting with the world. I didn't realize Toby Fox had played Deadly Premonition. Introducing FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan. Please, call him York. It's what everyone calls him. As if nothing before this mattered, our story begins with York on the phone while simultaneously browsing the web on a laptop, driving 30 miles per hour over the speed limit down a mountain pass. How else is he going to keep up on this case while he argues about the violent interdependent nature presented in Tom and Jerry? Intermixed with his philosophy, York explains this murder that we saw in the opening is part of a series of cases he is investigating with red seeds at their core. The last culprit gave him a nice scar thanks to some blades hidden under her fingernails. Now that York is no longer a distracted driver, he attempts to light up another cigarette. I didn't know squirrels had such a unique cry in the Pacific Northwest. York uses this moment to demonstrate his priorities by still having a smoke in the pouring rain. What else is he supposed to do? Turn on his flashlight? I forgot that was even a mechanic. PSA: normal people should not walk away from a wreck like this. You are very likely to get lost and be much harder to find. But this is FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan we're talking about. He flees the scene to break a fence with a melee weapon with durability, and finally realizes that he's not alone in this forest. So after all that, we are introduced to York's superpower: profiling. He wasn't kidding about being an FBI agent. Yes, smoking the cigarette helps him visualize the crime. It is totally not an addiction. I hope you can keep track of all this context because it moves rapidly, like hearing a dog and realizing that it was dead the entire time. After solving the world's most difficult button press, we get our formal introduction to the main monsters of Deadly Premonition. Killers who are so hell-bent on killing that their head will fling the rest of their body in whatever direction is closest to something to kill, going as far as to bend over backwards while in pursuit. They also have a tendency to teleport as if my own eyes are corrupted VCR footage skipping a beat to get back on track. I am not joking when I say this. The mysterious shadows are some of the coolest horror enemy design concepts I've ever seen. They're creepy, the way they move is uncanny, and they probably would be much more frightening in a game that didn't star FBI Special Agent Francis York motherfucking Morgan.
Amazing.
He's so good, he even gets paid more based on the number of headshots. A non-seasoned member of the force would probably struggle, which is why York mentions this is the first time he's ever been attacked like this. Now that we're out of the cutscene and into the gameplay, it's time to talk a little bit about combat. I did play the game on mouse and keyboard. Holding down spacebar will aim at the nearest enemy, and then the player can move the mouse to truly aim. York cannot walk and shoot at the same time, a la Resident Evil 4. But unlike that game, melee weapons do have durability, and it's the pistol that has infinite ammo. Hey, the government's paying for all the bullets.
Actually, the
melee weapons have durability in the Resident Evil 4 remake. Fuck, I'm old. This is already strange because it is technically better to shoot the fuck out of obstacles with a 9mm because it doesn't waste any resources. An interesting incentive that I'm sure was very intentional. Because it is advertised as a survival horror experience, having unlimited bullets to keep enemies at range is often described as bad. You simply need to open your mind and realize that Deadly Premonition is a horror game in the same way that Devil May Cry 1 is a horror game. If the combat was also incredibly boring. It somehow manages to be neither fun or tense, and it just feels like a chore to click on enemies until they finally collapse and turn into purple mist. A nearby payphone begins to ring, and upon answering, reveals this game's save system. I can't believe how seamlessly it introduces that concept. It does cost a whole $1 to save, so it's a good thing that we get paid based on body count and not just headshots. It's not a real expense because it's incredibly cheap, but instead serves as a narrative reminder that nothing in the world is free. Just like how picking up any old item requires bringing the game to a screeching halt to watch an animation of it spinning. It can be mashed to get through it a bit faster, but not by much. The only thing left to establish initial context would be to introduce the main antagonist. You know what? You're right. That is what rapidly growing vines sound like. After leaving what can only be described as some kind of trip to another dimension, the rain starts to clear up. York tells Zack that he knew this would happen because
My coffee warned me about it.
Yesterday morning, the milk I poured in my coffee made a sign. It said, "Tomorrow you'll arrive in a place that will change your fate."
left with no vehicle, York's only choice is to jog into town where he meets his first local law enforcement officer. And it truly is instant fireworks.
I didn't think you'd keep me waiting in the rain for so long.
FBI Special Agent, Francis York Morgan. Please, just call me York. That's what everyone calls me.
After explaining to Officer Emily that he just lost his car, he tells Zack how pretty she is, and reminds us to not tell her what we just saw, or she'll think they're crazy. Before we can ponder that too much, Sheriff George Woodman appears, and we go through York's introduction spiel. You're gonna need to get used to it. George then refers to York as Agent Morgan, to make it clear how he feels about their relationship. It's not too uncommon for local police forces to be upset when taking orders from the feds, especially ones who so considerately blow smoke in their faces and demand to get their wrecked cars taken care of. George says his assistant Thomas will handle the car and get his luggage to Agent Morgan's hotel. However, he blatantly tells Agent Morgan he doesn't need to worry. They'll handle the whole investigation while he can just treat this as a nice little vacation.
You don't have to be a tree worshiper to appreciate the wildlife here.
A line that surely has no relevance. York then reassesses the situation, believing that this town is like the Middle Ages and we just met the monarch.
Previously during the investigation.
Thank God the game gives us recaps between major chapters. Also, here's another reminder that this game is being told to someone's granddaughter. Of course, it's the Red Room again, although this time there's a trading card to collect of one of the twins who is speaking in riddles. I could think of a better way to introduce the in-game collectibles, but we do get a $200 bonus for picking them up. There's only one way forward, and York finds himself in a hallway. He's stopped by yet another, different, small child. Who is he? I don't know, but he sure seems to know York. The kid explains that by holding his breath, the enemies have no way to see you. This serves as a reminder that there is a stamina bar in this game, and that there is another mechanic I used a total of basically never. It's not terrible to hold your breath if an enemy gets too close, but it's usually easier to just shoot. This is another case of something that would be much more interesting in a completely different context and is perhaps a remnant of the game before the combat was added in. Since there's not really an incentive to use it, it feels very strange to draw so much attention to it. However, it does establish something important to cutscenes.
Zack, the symbolism in my dreams continues to intensify.
Don't worry about the unlit cigarette not being properly swapped out. This problem was persistent throughout my original playthrough, but mysteriously vanished a little bit into this one. Just another technical mystery to add to the pile. It's the start of a brand new day in a brand new town, so York makes sure to go get some coffee. He's very particular about his coffee, so he must traverse the hotel of comically large proportions. Great idea. A TV series should use that imagery at some point. Also, we can meet Polly, the hotel owner and its only worker. She has prepared breakfast for them at this normal-sized table for two. This is a crucial moment because I hope this song is not affected by Content ID. Even if you've never heard of this game, you might have heard this song.
My cooking will bring back repeat guests. Honestly, though, it's been a while since anyone has stayed here.
I couldn't help but notice.
It is a nice track, but it is by this point that any player will start to realize that the music is so poorly balanced that it's almost impossible to hear what the characters are saying. Thank God for subtitles. I know they are playing this up as a bit that Polly is hard of hearing while insisting that she sits so far away, but I like to think that they're trying to shout over the background music.
Polly, I can hardly hear you from all the way over there.
You're exaggerating. This is fine.
Polly comments on how large York's scar is, but he insists that it's simply a flesh wound. Keep that one in mind as every character will constantly bring it up. Zack has the option to ask more about the town and how it has a famous clock tower and used to be a prosperous lumber town until somewhat recently, which is why there are somehow 2 bars in town. York is served his coffee that he, once again, is very particular about and...
Did you see that, Zack? Clear as a crisp spring morning. FK. In the coffee.
You heard the man. FK in the coffee. As a jump scare, the game shows you that you have a hunger and sleep meter. Because yes, this game has those mechanics. Time passes, and York will need to eat and sleep by either going to restaurants when they are open, or by sleeping on whatever bed happens to randomly be nearby. If neither are available, York can use items from his inventory. This is a good excuse to show off this game's cool-looking menus. Items will drop from enemies, and most safe rooms and combat sequences just hand stuff out like candy to make sure the player doesn't start starving. But you can also buy items from vending machines like, what? $25 for a lollipop? $35 for a pack of crackers? What kind of inflation do they have going on in Greenvale? Going outside, York can see his new car to remind us that car-dependent suburbia is everywhere in America, even in towns with population of less than a couple hundred. George left a nice note along with the keys on the hood. This means that anyone, at any time, could have taken the car.
And nobody stole the car. Values. This town has what the country needs. Values.
Driving in Deadly Premonition is a truly beautiful experience. It's kinda hard to describe unless you play it yourself, but it's as if the car can barely turn, while also being incredibly easy to take on 2 wheels. I have a recurring nightmare that I'm driving in my car and the brakes don't work properly, so it's really good for the horror experience. There are multiple types of police cars to borrow at any time, but do yourself a favor. Never drive an SUV. The game also has controls for wipers and turn signals that have no gameplay function because I drive like a maniac. But there is a boost option.
About those bonus features.
Using the police siren is a speed boost. This is the best video game ever made. Though I end up not using it often because anytime York drives by himself, he doesn't let the air just hang. He will always talk to Zack about some cheesy 80s movies that they watched together, or maybe one of their prior cases. I'm not going to overpower the sound of male bonding time. This is another case where I have to specify that I am being serious. The relationship between York and Zack as a player insert is kinda brilliant. Just have the main character talk to the player directly as if they're old friends. The kids would probably describe York as having autistic riz, but it's just nice to hear a dude passionately talk about B-movies. Some people are probably putting a pun together in their head right around now. Don't get me wrong, it is still batshit insane that he just talks to himself like this in earshot of everyone around him, but if you manage to stick with the game and don't come away liking York, it'll make me a little sad. This is why I never find driving to be too boring until York runs out of things to say for that particular segment. If you barely try to look at all, you will notice there is a suspicious little time window in the corner because, yes, the game has effectively turned the player loose. As long as York arrives at the story destination within the time frame, everything else is up to Zack, including sleeping all the way till the next day to get to the time window. You can explore the town, do side quests, engage in the fishing minigame. It's kind of like Animal Crossing or Shemue, where the world is simulated and full of colorful characters to interact with. A perfect setting for a murder mystery game. Obviously, this is Deadly Premonition, so there's about 70 asterisks attached to it, like the cars getting about 2/3 of a mile to the gallon, and there's only one central gas station in town to try and find on the map that you can't zoom out very far on to get your bearings. But also the fact that the game constantly threatens to crash itself. It makes interacting with the world very difficult. The first time around when my game was crashing much more frequently, I completely ignored all of the side content. But I did want to get a little taste because it was much more stable this time around. The writing is of a surprisingly similar quality in all the side content I did before getting multiple crashes at the diner. A shame too, because spending more time to get attached to the town is something that I absolutely would have done if I could. But I was impressed at some of the random animations characters have when getting into and out of their vehicles. Time moves incredibly slowly in Greenvale. Just like the main story, the side missions will also only be available at certain hours. Waiting out everything in real time would be a massive pain, so thankfully, you can use cigarettes to pass time by closely watching the clock in the background and stopping it when it reaches the desired range. As a diegetic way to pass time in a video game, this is a really cool idea. The last mechanic related to time doesn't have anything that directly points it out to you until one of two things might happen. You suddenly see a fine for being a stinky agent and/or flies start manifesting around York in cutscenes. This is the stinky clothes mechanic, where you have to change into a fresh suit at any luggage access point. There's no meter for it, but York will describe how stinky they are when hovering over the cosmetic options to give you an idea of when you should switch. Then you have to remember to send the dirty clothes to dry cleaning. It's only like $10? Obviously, they won't be wearable while they're being treated. I don't think I've experienced a game that actively punishes the player for not changing their outfit. If this was Final Fantasy XIV, I'd be stacking up penalties until the end of time. Since we are forced into this menu, we even get to see how York names and describes his outfits. I'm baffled at how good of an idea this is. I almost wish more games did something like it, except maybe skip the beard growing and shaving gimmick. York arrives at the police department to finally thank Thomas McLean for getting all of his belongings from his car. Thomas's mannerisms are very interesting, But York does not have any prejudice, instead offering comfort that someone everyone knew in town is now dead. As Thomas runs to get the case files, York expresses that Thomas is clearly the kind and sensitive type. I then shave in the local break room because the game allowed me to. I even get a paid bonus for hygiene. I immediately stopped caring after this, so keep track of York's beard as you follow along. Thomas will be distressed because he lost the key to the files. All we have to do is find the keys with a southern flying squirrel on them.
You found the key. Is this the one you were looking for?
No. This is a gray squirrel. Sorry, that's not the key. Nothing particularly special about the gray squirrel, I'm afraid. You can find them in the US, Canada, and in England, too.
I hope you're keenly aware of the different types of squirrels and their distinct features. Thomas does have trivia for every type of squirrel you can show him, and I respect their complete commitment to the bit. But the curvy-tailed flying squirrel keys found in this random jail cell with a bed leaning against the wall is what we are looking for.
Well, Zack, we just got here, and we've cracked a big case already.
Looking over the files, Emily explains that the victim was Anna Graham, a recent high school graduate who worked at the A&G Diner. Clearly the diner is named after her. She lived alone with her mother. Her father died in a lumber mill accident when she was young. They have been living off the insurance money ever since because the cost of living is so cheap. Given how much the crackers cost, I don't want to know how expensive living in a big city in the Deadly Premonition universe is. To Emily, they seem to live normal lives.
A normal life is exactly what a curious teenager doesn't want.
This is a good biscuit. I've never tasted a biscuit this delicious. Where in town can I get these?
Thomas explains that he baked the biscuits this morning. York asks him why he's working in law enforcement if that's the case. George busts in to let them all know the autopsy is ready, and York and Emily can accompany him if they want. In order to smooth things over with George, York insists that he's the one who drives the car. George is understandably annoyed and exclaims that York doesn't even know how to get there. Excellent point, Sheriff. All the more reason York should learn how to get around town. Leave it to the master of interpersonal relationships to instantly make up.
Agent Morgan, get us there quickly, but drive within the speed limit. Just because you have a badge doesn't mean you can drive like a maniac.
George, what are you, his mother?
This brings me to another thing to slightly side tangent about. The dialogue in Deadly Premonition is a big highlight. In spite of the content of what they are saying sometimes being insane, they manage to keep their conversations sounding almost natural. At times, characters will be talking to each other while completely ignoring what the other person just said, and other times it sounds like normal banter. Are these shifts intentional? It doesn't matter. It's fun regardless. Just like how York will never leave dead air while alone, he will make small talk in the car when riding with other people. In this case, they have a nice conversation about love and relationships. George explains to the receptionist Fiona that they're here to see Usha, and she says it's nice to meet an FBI agent. York wonders how she could possibly tell that he was FBI. Oh, I don't know, York. Only because you tell everyone you meet. Fiona says that it's actually because he wears cologne, but after she's done laughing, it's because of his very large, recognizable scar.
Rumors get exaggerated as they spread, even in the countryside.
Anyway, Dr. Johnson is in the computer room, and she's reading a book that's part of the inspiration for the game. As expected, Dr. Johnson is not in the computer room and instead leaves a puzzle for them to solve.
The king passes the rook and meets the bishop. The knight takes a pawn along for the queen.
At first I thought I would have to play chess and reveal to the world how terrible I am at the game, but thankfully, I just have to know what the pieces look like and how to read a sentence from start to finish. Yeah, I'm pretty smart. One thing you might have noticed is me constantly running into doors while opening them. This is actually important because if York is walking, he does this slow animation where he has to ponder if he knows what a door is and carefully look at the other side before walking through. Running and interacting does this animation instead, which is much faster. Just another incredible gameplay mechanic I've come to expect from Deadly Premonition.
Usha, sorry to keep you waiting.
Ah, you made it. Let's get started, shall we?
York and Usha hit it off almost immediately because York solved his little puzzle and he reveals that he is not a forensic investigator, although he is a little familiar with corpses.
We don't have much time. We need those autopsy results.
Next time, try challenging us without obstructing an investigation. You've angered the monarch.
So Dr. Johnson explains that the estimated time of death is between 20 and 2200. That's 8 and 10 p.m. for my fellow Americans. She has 2 exterior wounds with pressure marks on her neck and a giant cut down the middle of her chest. She also has blood marks on her right hand, indicating that she was gripping something tightly. Her skull is cracked, but that happened after she was killed. Although he originally thought she died of suffocation, she actually died from blood loss. In other words, she was cut up while she was still alive. Unusually, there are no signs of scratching and no signs of being beaten, implying that there was very little resistance. Usha then delivers a final revelation that even if Anna had managed to survive, she wouldn't have been able to tell anyone her story. This leaves the room confused except York, who immediately understands that her tongue was cut out. York examines the body while the music changes tonally to something much more fitting, as Usha explains his theory about the killer in very gruesome detail.
He must get off on watching women suffer, especially when they can't answer back.
York cuts him off though, explaining that it's his job, and reveals that she definitely died while conscious. He then turns to ask Emily when the rain stopped. Confused that he asked her, she says that it stopped a little after her movie.
What movie was it?
An American Werewolf in London.
Directed by John Landis, 1981.
York insists on examining the body himself because all of this lines up with the cases he's personally investigating. Thus, there is a gameplay segment of examining everything while moving around in a first-person camera perspective. It's not always clear what's interactable, but before I get to complain about it, it's already over and it never happens again.
Zack, it's all starting to come together. The perpetrator stayed with her for at least 2 hours until it stopped raining. At the estimated time of her death, it was still raining, but you can still see tear marks on her cheeks. That means she was killed under a roof somewhere. She was then carried into the woods after it stopped raining.
There's one other thing. Her tongue was removed with a very blunt knife. In fact, it's more likely it was simply chopped off.
Usha, are you a passionate man?
Well, not particularly, but I am man enough should the moment call for it.
George, how about you?
I'm very passionate, yes. Especially when it comes to women. But I don't see what that has to do with anything.
George, the perpetrator, is just like you. He's passionate about women. He's a passionate kisser. This was a kiss of death.
The perpetrator bit off Anna's tongue.
I don't want to play out the entirety of too many cutscenes.
Jackpot.
He then announces the FBI is taking over from here on out. He throws out a bunch of seeds from different cases to assure them he's not bullshitting. Then he tells Usha how to win his chess match before leaving the room. The hospital's looking a little different than I remember, and I guess this wall is a polite way of telling me where I need to go. Is all of this happening in York's head? Have we entered into another dimension? Is he having a deadly premonition? Thankfully, they never answer these questions, and honestly, I think it would be much worse if they ever explained this other realm. Sorry, I don't know where that fake cough came from. But the combat sequences abruptly appear as bad as I'm making them out to. Enemies still turn into purple mist when they die, which is about the only thing I'm going to point out again, as it will likely be important later. Kinda like this keycard, which has a very different shape until York revealed it. I will be cutting out a lot of the combat sequences in this video, but just know they are both longer than you would like and shorter than you think. You don't usually have to kill all the enemies, and sometimes they will respawn infinitely. So there isn't much stopping you from just running past everything, except for maybe the occasional box to move out of the way, or a cramped hallway where you can't get around them. It could be annoying to navigate these identical hallways, so thankfully, the image of Anna points York in the correct direction. Getting a keycard out of an MRI machine leads us to a scary room with scary music and technically a new type of enemy. Killers with shotguns that aim really slowly and are very easy to interrupt. They're not really threatening, but these enemies become a problem if they manage to hide out of sight somewhere before forcing you to use one of the 10
duodecillion
health kits they constantly hand out. Upon clearing the scary room, York seems to snap back to reality as he tries to light a cigarette, an action that makes everyone around him wonder if he's such an addict that he has to light one up in a hospital. We then get another character introduction. This is Harry Stewart, son of the man who started up the lumber business in town and local tycoon that owns most of the land and businesses that are still around. He doesn't speak much, but his aide Michael sure does.
Mr. Francis York Morgan, haste won't lead you to what you seek. Keep your eyes focused on your footing as we speak. So says Mr. Stewart.
Nice to meet you too. How did you know my name?
Because you tell everyone! Mr. Stewart continues to tease York that he has information, but instead of playing all of his cards now, merely says that the rain makes the town go mad and that it's so sad.
So says Mr. Stewart.
George insists that York ignores that nonsense, while Emily gets a call that they can interview the first witnesses. A quick drive later, because I don't want to show more of George getting mad at York for antagonizing him, and York insisting that this is just his personality, I start to see how low my gas is getting, but choose not to think about it too hard. Just like the opening cutscene showed us, the witnesses who found the body are a couple of young twins, Isaac and Isaiah, along with their grandpa.
Just like in my dream.
York doesn't even try to shield the boys from what they are about to talk about against the social norms of literally everyone around them. He says they'll be fine.
Look at them, standing so upright there.
Yeah, that's what standing looks like. Isaac and Isaiah say that Anna was very pretty and very happy. She was a goddess of the forest and even smiled when she saw them. Now that's what I call a successful statement acquisition. York insists on investigating the crime scene himself and lights up another cigarette. This gives us a better idea of how York is able to visualize a crime scene piece by piece. It starts very blurry until he can get some more clues. I didn't realize it was already pouring rain, but at least he has an official FBI poncho. Each time York finds a clue, we can watch the same profiling scene as before, but it gets slightly clearer. I just think it's a bit excessive, and I only ever pay attention to the last one. I did get stuck during this investigation, because while the red particles indicate something story relevant, I didn't understand how to get to them. That's when I realized I was stupid, and I could still scroll through my weapons to shoot evidence out of trees. I thought only money grew there. The most important pieces of evidence are the broken stiletto heel, and this picture of the killer with a tattoo on his back. I really gotta thank Anna for leaving that one behind. York understands that the tattoo is clearly an upside-down peace sign. George is busy putting together that the killer must have put on Anna's heels after killing her and breaking them as he tried to get away. But that's a crazy theory from someone with a very vivid imagination. Instead, York explains that the heels were different from the ones they recovered, which likely belonged to Anna. With the profiling coming together, he understands that the killer was praying before Anna's body, and therefore there was someone else who broke her heel as she ran away. These so-called Miss-Stiletto heels. She also took whatever Anna was gripping in her hand. Emily says the stilettos are not useful evidence because every woman in town has a pair, though there is one person who might be willing to wear them all the way out here. Diane, the owner of the art gallery, but she's currently out of town. Thankfully, there's a piece of metal York also found nearby which can serve as a lead. George and Emily both agree that it's from the old lumber mill. Still, it's a little strange because why would the culprit kill her so far away and then take her all the way to this specific tree? Who knows? Of course, this could all be a sham if it turns out that there really isn't a third party based on York's profiling, but this is just how he does things. The game heard my gas comment earlier because anytime you have to get from point A to point B and side content is not available, the car will get infinite gas and infinite durability, and time ceases to function. Upon arriving at the theoretical crime scene, York refuses to let anyone else investigate the building with him, and we get to see the annoyed emote that every character will repeat because it's all they had the animation budget for. York says he doesn't doubt their ability to investigate a crime scene, but...
Did you hear that, Zack? If they're pros, then we should let every first-person shooter gamer out there join the SWAT team.
I've played this game twice, and I'm still not exactly sure what the shadows say when they die. I think it's, I don't want to die, but I can never clearly hear what they say at first.
Great.
York sees what I assume is the killer, but he's immune to bullets, before stumbling into what appears to be some kind of ritual chamber where Anna was killed. Guess his profiling is not pure delusion, and the original crime scene was just where the body ended up. The game gives me an SMG, which I think I could have gotten earlier. I greatly appreciated this to speed up some of the more tedious segments. York answers a phone call and gets a disconnected sound, but hears a voice anyway.
Where are you hiding?
I still can't believe that's not a bit. Going further into the mill, we find the only lever that can't be interacted with and must be whacked into place with a melee weapon. At least, I don't remember this being required anywhere else in the game. York finds another reverse peace sign, but that's not a new clue. Instead, he hears the sound of a baby crying and flushes a toilet that's filled with flat, code red Mountain Dew to cause the axe murderer to walk by in the background. Yes, it is required to do that in order to get the door to open. York will sprint through doors, but he'll never break them down if they're locked because that would be unethical. Those baby sounds begin getting louder, but it turns out to just be a squeaky gearbox. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to say it's a reference to mouthwashing. Fixing the industrial lift because I don't want to say elevator right now, it gets stuck on what appears to be some red hair. Another PSA. Don't stick your hands in random mechanical parts unless you're not too attached to your limbs. Pun intended. I was wondering if this would turn into a combat sequence on a moving platform, so I'm glad they played into the trope. Once York gets to the top, the power goes out, except for literally everything but the elevator. A strange door blocks the path, so it's time to dick around in the rest of this dungeon. You couldn't make a sequence this funny if you tried. The hand that drop is obviously a doorknob, which has the most aggressive boomer handshake I've ever seen. You know what I'm talking about. When the person you're shaking hands with grips so hard you can feel your own muscles weakening. He finds another fake nail just like Anna was wearing, which of course means we need more info by looking at ourselves in the mirror. York sees the red raincoat guy break the door open for us yet again. This way, York can avoid unethical behavior by making the criminals do it for him. If you wondered if it was an instant game over if you missed the dodge, you actually get a second try right afterwards. The second one's a lot easier and I've never failed it, but I assume that one will kill you. As always, the raincoat guy runs away, never to be seen again. Thankfully, York finds the breaker box to get the power back on and receives another phone call.
I see you.
Oh shit, it's that guy I just said we'll never see again. The sequence looks surprisingly cool because it uses a split camera view that lowers the FPS to show the killer and York's hiding spot at the same time while his heart rate slowly rises. York has to make sure to hold his breath whenever the killer gets close because remember, nobody can see you when you hold your breath. I lied, it does technically exist in the gameplay. Despite the split perspective, it's not that complicated. All you have to do is follow the button prompts and he'll eventually leave. Much like everything in Deadly Premonition, it's a cool idea with some very confusing execution. At least he leaves us with a nice parting gift.
Zack, this is a waste of time. Let's go.
Oh no, he was waiting outside the whole time! Once again, the perspective doesn't really matter, but it does make me wonder why York has to stop and push some boxes instead of walking around them. You know, on second thought, the second camera makes it really obvious when the killer teleports to keep up with the player. Yeah, that's right, York. Don't want to open that door too fast or run into the hot steam by accident. After escaping in the most action movie sequence possible, York rides the elevator back down, only to get stopped by a set of QuickTime events from the man who just fell 20 stories without flinching. Alright, you know what? That was pretty cool. Finally getting the last piece of the puzzle, there was definitely some kind of freaky sex cult stuff going on in addition to the murder. York then immediately reports to George and Emily with all of his clues in hand, including a piece of the raincoat. Emily says that's odd because very few people in town go out in the rain. As a result, not too many people likely own a raincoat. She never really understood the town's behavior around the rain because, thankfully, George can elaborate. There is a legend of a killer in a raincoat that murders when it rains. Everyone in town respects this legend. Many even close up shop out of tradition, in a place where it rains very frequently. Armed with this knowledge, York explains that the raincoat killer has now jumped out of the picture book, and they need to show him their backs. Why? Because he and Zack just saw the man in the picture kill Anna, but don't ask him about Zack. It's a personal matter. With the killer having such an obvious mark, if they show him their backs, they can clear their names and York doesn't have to suspect them anymore. Understandably, George says that's out of the question, if not outright sexual harassment, especially towards Emily. But she immediately agrees, saying that they can just get this over with if it means it will make things easier. Besides, what kind of sicko would want to look at some people's backs? Oh no.
Are you satisfied now?
Now under the influence of peer pressure, George makes it clear that he's still reluctant, and it's immediately obvious why.
Huh?
George.
What are these scars?
Just like your Mr. Zack. Something private.
He might be a hard ass, and he might keep his secrets, but this is as vulnerable as George is willing to make himself. He clearly cares more about the case than his pride, even if it is just by a little. That clears up any suspicion on those two, so now they can work as a team, if that means that York does whatever he wants and they follow along.
But he certainly is the most irritating.
York asks them to gather up as much of the town as possible for a little announcement, and George says he'll get everyone he can to show up at the community center tomorrow. If by that, he meant having Emily handle it as he's going to go pass out. He hasn't slept at all since the incident. Fair enough. I then see if I can make it to the local gas station before I have to push my car. That's not actually a mechanic. If the car ever runs out of gas, it just becomes a dud and you have to start walking. Thankfully, I didn't need to do that because I barely made it. Don't make the same mistake I did. You can just grab a different police car in the lot and it's gonna have a full tank of gas. Also, washing the car repairs it. That must be some incredible spit. You can also pay Jack the equivalent of 3 packs of saltines to get some info, and he'll give you hints for some side content to participate in. I decided to go back to the hotel and listen to York talk about movies once again. Sleeping to pass time was great for energy and terrible for hunger, but I think York can survive for a few hours without food. So instead of going straight into the rest of the story, this is the moment when I felt like I could actually do some side content. My first order of business was to get George his missing dumbbell that I accidentally stole earlier, and I want to include this because of how funny his animation looks when he's sitting in a chair. I decided to also eat Thomas's cooking while I was here, which is completely optional, just to watch York continue to interact perfectly with the crew.
Reminds me of a film I saw recently.
Before going to the town meeting, I decide to check in with Sally Graham, Anna's mother. Once again, this is optional. York actually tries to console her a bit as a way to gain access to Anna's room, where he finds some poorly hidden cigarettes and a picture of her doing something scandalous.
Doesn't matter what town you're from. Girls will be girls.
What an incredible juxtaposition from York's previous comment on rural communities. Anna's diary contains something about a ritual, feeling amazing after he used something, and she's worried about Becky. It was at this point I realized that York does some actual investigating in the side content when he just profiles in the main story. It's a shame I had a game crash soon after this and didn't follow up on any of it. But if you do plan to do the side content, do it right before or after the town meeting for reasons that will be pretty obvious. Also, Jack's wife works at the gas station too, and
I've never seen you here before. You in town to see some sights?
Right. With that out of the way, it's time to have the town hall. I should admire that clock tower that Polly said was famous. York uses this time to announce that he's here to bring the murderer of Anna Graham to justice. But really, these types of killings are very likely to occur again. So everyone should refrain from going out at night or be in isolated places. And especially, avoid the rain. However, York is distracted in the middle of speaking when he sees a hot lady enter named Carol. She's Thomas's sister. Really, this is an opportunity to meet all the townsfolk if you never drive around and do it yourself. It's kind of nice to meet the people before this point because they will acknowledge that. However, Mr. Stewart has his own plans to make an announcement before everyone disbands.
When paying for our sins, we must not frown. The loss of Anna was for that debt. When purple fog covers our town, we'll all wander in hell, I fret. So says Mr. Stewart.
Right. Talking to Thomas.
Thomas, I forgot to ask. You don't have a tattoo on your back, do you?
Tattoo? I do, actually. But why?
Could you show it to me, please?
What? Now? Here?
Yes, please. This is vital for our investigation.
Okay, if it's gonna help you any.
Well, I'm wondering who G is now, but aside
Wait,
from that...
York can selectively turn off Zack's vision? Can he rebel against Zack? Before we can think about it more, Mr. Stewart stops York to use riddles to say he still knows something, but will tell York at the proper time. George is upset that Harry is hiding something, but ultimately storms off. The game will now force York to question everyone personally, including taking a smoke break with Carol, who reveals a bit more about Anna.
I'm sure she's still an airhead, even in heaven.
The gravekeeper in town is also very clearly a zombie, but that's not relevant to the main plot. The other interesting person is Quint, who is very upset with York, saying that he needs to take this case seriously.
Good point. You can't always count on the police now, can you?
But that doesn't mean you're going to capture the perpetrator yourself, Quint.
How do you know my name?
I memorized the name of every citizen before arriving in town. I also know about you and your significant other.
You mean Becky?
Don't underestimate the FBI. We know and see everything.
I'm sorry if I was a little harsh. I want to help, I do. Okay?
Okay, Zack, I'll tell you how I knew his name. He's got a small Q on his hat. That was the only name beginning with Q that I could think of. He was even kind enough to tell us his girlfriend's name. I can read him like a book, Zack.
Becky also comes up when talking to Lily, who says that she hasn't come into work for a while. Yeah, losing a friend tends to make people a bit depressed. We can also learn that Usha made a bunch of money in LA before moving out to the sticks. He keeps working out of passion. We also learn that the only other black guy in town sells guns. They might have wanted to consider the optics on that one. With the meeting over, Emily asks York if he wants to get dinner with the crew at Nick's Diner. And it's a better place to shoot the shit than a parking lot or the police department. George goes on about how this is the worst crime that's ever taken place in Greenvale, so Emily wants to know what kind of cases York worked on, and well...
The guy killed 7 girls in a 3-month period. He sawed their heads off from the neck and took them back to his house. He cleaned the skulls up and used them as utensils in his daily life, to eat from or as a urine cup.
I told you this man was a master of interpersonal relationships. It's like he jumped right out of a movie. Emily says she feels like they're in completely different leagues, but York assures them they are both working in solving crimes, and he doesn't view it that way. He respects them all as equals, proving that he is a liar because of what he told Zack earlier. Though really, the local police are just upset because something so violent happened in their own town. This never seemed like the sort of place where it could happen. After they leave, I went to the gun store to see if I could buy something new. Instead, I find out that Wesley is the guy I can show my trading card collection to get rewards. Fucking nerd. His shop is also portable and available in every safe room in the game. Insert comment about the cost of ammunition versus crackers here. Finally getting back to the hotel, York begins typing up his report on his typewriter in his hotel room. The game takes this opportunity to see if the player is paying attention to the mystery, but we all remembered the case in vivid detail thanks to my amazing summary. Long story short, we still have a few threads to pull on and a few individuals to investigate, but they'll just have to go one by one. Also, York is starting to develop feelings for Emily.
Oh, and on Emily's back, it was strange to me. Hey, don't take that the wrong way, Zack. I wasn't getting all excited or anything.
Ellie! Lunchtime, Ellie!
Yeah, a story about a bunch of murders seems like a good thing to tell a child. Maybe it's not too far off from the grim fairy tales.
Are you thirsty?
Oh, right. I forget that every dream sequence has to end with the red-colored room and kids handing out riddles. This time, York is greeted to a vision of Anna pouring coffee, of course, and some other person.
My name is Becky.
If only the game would tell me who she is. After drinking a nice cup of joe, another door opens and we are instead greeted by a white room. We see the same small child we saw once before, but this time, York says that it's him when it happened. It would be nice to learn a little bit more about it, but we'll get there later. York just knows that this means the case is directly related to him and Zack, but he doesn't know how.
But I do know I need some coffee.
Whoa there!
Did you need something?
No, I was just passing by. I didn't think anybody else was here other than Polly. The door opening like that it surprised me, that's all.
Wait, Forrest Kaysen. FK. FK in the coffee. It's him! Get his ass!
FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan.
I get it. You're the special agent Scarface that
Okay, I guess he's fine then. Kaysen is a salesman who comes to town once or twice a year and has a nice dog named Willie. What does Kaysen sell? Why, it's these red saplings. He even has a sample.
I'm pretty much the only one who can make those saplings sprout.
Fucking kill him! Kill him, York! He's the culprit!
Zack, do you remember what the coffee said? Forest Cason. F.K.
Oh, thank God he does remember.
This show has just begun.
But York's not going to follow up on that? Okay. Diane is back in town. York points out that it's rare for a small town to have an art gallery, but Diane is extremely wealthy and bought an old mansion to turn it into her own art gallery. That makes 3 suspiciously wealthy people in town, and York once again insists on talking to the suspect alone. Not because he can't trust the team, but because it allows him to analyze body language better to see if the suspect is lying. Before York can get very far, he runs into a distressed and confused Olivia, who keeps saying that she really likes trees, which is why she goes to the gallery that features many paintings of trees.
Zack, she was lying about something. She said trees, not paintings of trees. She doesn't need to come here to see trees. There's tons of trees outside.
Did she do that on purpose? It's the key to the gallery and a memo about the code to Diane's office. Is York just going to break in to interview Diane? I guess that way she can't be too prepared. There are certainly a lot of tree paintings like they said, and we need to find specific ones in order to find out the code. One of said paintings is found in the basement, which also feels off limits to someone who isn't an FBI special agent. I appreciate all the signposting with red particles for saving me from stumbling around even more than I already do. It's not a particularly hard puzzle, but how many trees do you think this painting counts for? Yeah, it's 6. After breaking and entering, Diane is currently busy arguing with someone else.
I'm taking it with me, okay?
That's fine by me then, as you wish.
She's taking this rather well for someone seeing an uninvited guest. Long story short, Diane's alibi is that she was drinking with Nick until the very early morning. So we better check in with him so he can lie for her. York follows up by asking about the argument he just walked in on.
She's always like that. She thinks of me as an enemy, always bickering at what I say.
Is there any reason for that?
Perhaps because someone she liked ended up with me in my bed?
That would explain it, yes. If I may be so bold, who was the lucky man?
Oh, I sleep with anyone I wish. Anyone I prefer to sleep with. I guess she had her eye on one of them, but I don't know who it was exactly. I could sleep with you, if you like.
I'm flattered by your offer, but I don't think that would be appropriate.
You know, it is a good thing that York did this alone.
Oh, you don't know, do you? Artists and art lovers, we love a good thrill.
He might not have learned about Diane's, promiscuousness. Good as time as any to check in with Nick at the cursed diner of permanent crashing.
That's Cason.
FK! FK and the coffee! York asks Emily about said Cason. She says that he always speaks in weird comparisons and comes to town semi-frequently to sell things. He also seems to be close to the twins, but that's just alluding to some side content. This drive is the perfect opportunity for York and Emily to talk alone.
Zack, I'm not liking the way this conversation is heading. Let's concentrate on driving instead.
The A&G Diner. Wonder what the A and G stand for. Any ideas, Emily?
York's lack of a filter is a thing of beauty. As per usual, our favorite wheelchair-bound man shows up in a cutscene.
Here you go. The usual. 1 turkey, strawberry jam, and cereal sandwich.
Sounds like the sinner's sandwich. Self-inflicted punishment to atone for past sins. He's setting an example.
Mr. Francis York Morgan, you should try this wonderful lunch. It's more than a delicious, tasty crunch. So says Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, nice prank, old man. There's no way a combination like that could taste any good.
I can't believe it. This is fantastic.
I really shouldn't have been surprised. Unlike the car ride, York and Emily actually talk to each other.
Anyway, after that, I just sort of chose not to really trust gossip.
I get where you're coming from. I used to dress like a hardcore punk rocker when I was in high school.
You? A punk rocker?
What was I here for again? Oh yeah, talking to Nick. He says a whole lot of nothing other than, "Sir, this is the kitchen. Please leave." So instead, York interrogates Olivia for like the third time. She repeats the exact same story of Nick and Diane going out to drink, but she never goes with them because she's not into art.
Objection!
You said at the gallery that you do like art. So which one is it? Alright, they caught her. She was trying to talk to Diane, but she'll tell them about it after work behind the diner that requires this key that she can hand out to anyone. Or something. Quickly resetting after a game crash and killing time by taking an 11-hour smoke break, one that required some snacks, York can finally talk to Olivia. By first lighting up another cigarette. Olivia doesn't really like to talk about the fact that her husband spends a lot more time drinking with another woman and getting back home extremely late, but I guess she's finally had enough. She followed Nick and Diane one time, and they did go to the bar, but they went to the gallery afterwards.
But it was already early morning, but it was still dark. Just before going inside, Diane turned around. It should have been too dark to see me, but I swear, her eyes looked right at me. They seemed to flash for a moment. I was so rattled that I left and went home. The next day, Anna was found dead. I didn't know what to do.
Thank God Emily is here to comfort someone. I'm sure York will use this as a learning opportunity to see how having other people around actually helps him. Anyway, Olivia was going to confront Diane, but chickened out at the last minute. That's the moment that York saw her. Before they can think about investigating Nick, they get a call from George that something has happened at Becky's house. Quint called it in, but was barely making any sense. He did mention something about a raincoat killer. Time to step on the gas, but not too much, unless I want to flip the car.
Oh, Becky.
Yeah, I think he's in an emotional state to say anything. Thomas didn't actually go inside, so it looks like York is going in, but don't worry, he's not alone. He always has Zack. If you told me that Zack actually refers to York's cigarette addiction, I'd believe you. A haunted mansion. How original. Whoa, okay, I guess we're getting started early. Is this an artistic choice? Probably. I haven't talked too much about the combat zones. They're not super terrible settings, it's just the use of recycled assets can weirdly make them all blend together. I get that the mannequins are a motif inside of York's dreams as well, but when the same wooden crates are everywhere and the same enemies and the same grittiness, it starts to give a strange blandness to everything that I don't think works very well. On second thought, it's probably just how bland the shooting gameplay is that really makes it hard to separate everything in my head. They definitely tried to make each spooky dungeon a distinct place. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. There's only one other thing they could bring back at this point.
I see you.
If you look closely at the raincoat killer's glowing eyes, they occasionally clip through the rest of their body. This is not any different than the first time this happened. I'm not really surprised they didn't have any more tricks up their sleeve.
Huh?
Very bad, Zack.
Oh, how bad could it possibly be? Good lord, that's a lot of blood. For how much was on the tank top, I didn't expect this at all. The stock sounds just knock all the wind out of the sails of what otherwise would be an incredibly gruesome scene. Remember, this is toned down from what they started with, too.
Zack, she's still alive. Who did this? Who was it, Becky?
Becky! What happened here?
Probably a good time for everybody else to show up.
She's trying to speak.
We don't have time! She's dying! Thomas, cut that wire. No! We must get her to the hospital immediately. What? What are you doing? Get out of the way! I'll do it!
No, don't! George, stop!
What the hell? What is with this tone shift? Sure, a perfect time to light up another cigarette. Well, the key Becky coughed up goes to the safe. I guess we have to respect her dying wishes. I don't know how else to interpret that. All Becky left behind is a sketchbook with an encoded message.
My dear sister, I'm so sorry. I was a fool to fall for a man like him. I don't have the words to apologize to Anna.
I left her there. She was suffering so much, and I just ran away.
I know he wanted to kill me too, but I'm not going to let him get away with this. I followed him after he was finished. He carried Anna into the woods. Anna was holding on to that precious locket of his. He couldn't remove it from her hand, even though she was dead. But she let go of it for me, though. It was like she gave it to me. So I brought it home.
That solves that. Becky was Miss Stiletto Heels, the other witness to the crime, and she gave the locket to the twins. Also, Becky and Diane are sisters, in case you're struggling to keep track. I know I sure am.
I should have known, Zack. We're all family here.
Note that Kaysen is playing with the twins, as this will not be important later.
When did Becky stop coming to work?
I think it was like from the day Anna was killed, man.
Yeah, once again, your friend getting murdered tends to make people a little bit depressed.
Yes, of course. What about it?
Sure, let's start playing that track right now. They will let York interview the twins again, and yes, they let Kaysen take them out on walks once in a while so they can fuck. Alright, they use a little less crude language, but I know what they meant. One car trip with Emily and a conversation about having a sense of justice later, and York asked the twins about Becky's secret. But they can't just tell her secrets, or else it won't be a secret. However, that's a problem, because York promised to promised to bring the man who hurt her to justice. That comment is enough for them to explain that Becky gave them a box to give to Diane that contained a locket. Carol intercepted them and said that she would give the box to Diane, but they really wanted to do it themselves. York deduces that Carol is the one who currently has the locket.
Right, Kaysen?
Huh?
York did see Carol get the locket from Diane back at the gallery, and he also knows that Kaysen was there.
Well, yeah, I was there in the room, but I was only chatting with Diane.
Well, I'm convinced. York informs Kaysen that he is no longer allowed to leave town because he is a key witness to the case. Then York calls him fat in a very roundabout way. York and Emily tell the twins Becky went to go see the rabbits, which is a euphemism for saying she became a goddess of the forest in the Deadly Premonition universe.
Zack, I hope Emily doesn't end up as a forest goddess too.
They wouldn't happen to be foreshadowing anything here, would they? York and Zack once again discuss the evidence. Diane is one of the most suspicious persons in the story, so they plan a stakeout. George will watch the gallery to keep track of Diane, while Emily looks after the diner. Thomas will keep track of both of them inside the bar, and York will wait outside to see if anyone goes anywhere. That means York planned this out so he would have time to kill, which means we're going to take another smoke break. Emily regroups with York and reports that Nick is still in the bar, so they stake out until Thomas reports that Nick is leaving. They call George, who says there is no movement with Diane. In true small-town American fashion, Nick leaves the bar after drinking heavily and goes straight into driving. Please do not note that Nick is driving much better than me in-game, while York is only getting high off of nicotine. I'm so glad there's a tailing mission in Deadly Premonition. Of course the drunk guy doesn't get into a wreck. What did SWERY mean by this?
I think someone's putting a curse on all the cars I drive recently.
So for narrative reasons, Nick gets away, but York goes to the gallery regardless. Once they get there, George says that Nick still hasn't shown up.
But George, something's different about you. Are you okay?
Actually, I had a little drink while I was waiting. This is my first murder case, after all.
Look, you can't fool me, game. I know you're trying real hard to make me suspect George. He has every opportunity to murder every person, cover his tracks, and play obstruction. But it's just too obvious. If this isn't a red herring, I'll make a Project Moon reference.
그건 그거고, 이건 이거다.
What really happened is George was busy watching the main entrance and not looking for secret underground entrances and a place for Nick to park his car without being spotted. With York on the case, I guess the strange realities are not something that only he experiences, because George and Emily clearly exist in the same dimensional plane. Also, these sequences only happen in the rain, which I'm sure doesn't mean anything. To York's surprise, there is a hidden entrance in the shed.
Emily, I want you guys to...
Wait out here, I know.
I'm going to interpret this as a sign of trust.
You might not think so, but we're a team.
A team?
That's what I think, at least, and I'm interested in you and Zack.
I guess all the insane stories and lack of social awareness managed to woo her over. Confidence can get you a lot of places, traveler. Just make sure that you're confidently yourself and not someone else. Imagine if Emily found out York wasn't actually a B-movie connoisseur. His relationship would be deader than all these mysterious shadows. Why does Diane have a secret tunnel connecting the shed to the gallery where she lives and works? I have no idea, but I do know that there is a new enemy. This thing is pretty creepy. It can crawl on other surfaces and shoot projectiles. Thus, York reveals that his dodge button is not merely limited to Raincoat Killer chase sequences. He is a special agent after all. These grudge-looking enemies are quite annoying because of how much health they have, so it's best to whip out the stronger guns with limited ammo.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
The irony of editing that in while talking about Deadly Premonition isn't lost on me. The Shadow Gallery, or whatever we want to call these other dimensions, reveal a puzzle of shooting apples and matching them to the color of paintings. This is a moment that required some creativity on my first playthrough with the aiming bug, but it is possible. However, on this playthrough, I didn't see the third apple and died to the screen becoming too purple. I'm kinda glad this happened because the way York looks here after getting a game over is actually relevant to the lore, just like how there are always red seeds. I hope you like the sliding things out mechanic because it's going to be used a lot from here on out. What? There's no horror stinger for that one? I thought I could trust you. At least we can trust the profiling. I just have to get past a few more advanced enemies, which did manage to hit me because I got too close, and finally York reaches the entrance.
Agent Morgan, where are you?
York remembers to let his team in so they can witness the horror themselves.
Diane?
Emily then notices Diane is still alive, and York immediately begins trying to free her in such a way that won't impale her on the conveniently sharp piece of art. I gotta give credit where it's due. York knew exactly what happened last time and wanted to avoid making the same mistake. George takes over to move the now deadly art piece and strains so hard that his nose starts bleeding. He was not skimping on those workouts, but he's not going to be fast enough.
George, catch us!
See? That's what it means to be part of a team. I'm double shocked. They actually managed to save Diane.
George?
In fact, she seems to be doing rather well.
What a beautiful beast.
She can still kinda talk after her tongue was chopped off. This has to be pure adrenaline. Or the seeds are like highly concentrated meth and cocaine combined. Nick finally wakes up in a daze and is instantly restrained by George.
Back off! Don't touch me!
That can't be good.
Diane, no! Move!
Emily, hurry!
Is it destiny? Was there no real way to save Diane? The universe and God willed it to happen? How else can such an insane series of events occur? Yeah, York, go console Emily. And the music changes again. Oh, it's as if York is changing the tracks himself with how tone deaf it is. Okay, Willie, where are we going? To push a dresser and find out that someone was stuck in Diane's cuck chamber?
Willie, are you out there?
Come on. There's no way. Kaysen was here to get some action, which he actually admits. It's the real reason that he comes to town. He was even the one who drove Diane back from Seattle. However, he can't have this getting out because he's currently getting divorced, so he has to keep his wife's lawyers in the dark. Kaysen's testimony is that they were just drinking until Nick showed up. Diane locked him up, and he waited for her, but he only ever heard some footsteps. Yeah, I'm sure that's all he heard. He threw Willie out the window to get help because he was trapped here for hours and therefore could not be the murderer. I'll never believe you, Mr. FK. The coffee told me not to trust you. Too bad for me because York explains to Zack that the room was locked and there was no way for Kaysen to commit the crime. Now where have I heard that one before? Kaysen continues to claim he heard boots stepping outside of his, room and not heels. Nick was the only one here wearing boots. York notes that George is especially depressed after the two most recent murders.
Agent Morgan. York. Do you have a moment?
That's rare. George does not usually call him York. He wants to go to a bar for a chat. I didn't think George would want to be all friendly. After a couple drinks, George opens up a bit more, revealing that his face scar is a childhood injury. York begins relating by talking about how he hurt himself climbing trees as a kid, but this is nothing like that.
It was my mother. She did it.
I'm sorry, George.
Don't worry. It's ancient history.
George never knew his father, as he begins describing all the various abuse from his mother, the worst of which was called the tree punishment, where she hit his back with tiny tree branches.
And that's why I didn't want to show you those scars on my back. Every time after the tree punishment, she'd always say the same thing. This is hurting the tree more than it is hurting you.
The soft piano music chimes in, and I was getting kind of choked up. And I feel like it's a surprisingly good bit of character development. George finally opens up to someone about his abuse, realizes that it's contributed to some of his worst behavior, and ultimately, the reason why there's more victims. The man made more progress in 5 minutes than some people make in multiple therapy sessions.
You know, it's almost like they died because of me.
You're out of your mind.
And he deliberately started calling him York as a way to show his sincerity. I thought this game would just be a string of tonal whiplashes and unintentional comedy, but no, there's some good emotional story beats underneath its rough edges. So York uses this opportunity to ask Carol about the locket, but she says she's busy as she begins her performance. The lyrics are the most generic, sappy ballad I could possibly imagine, but it fits the vibe of what they want, so I don't really mind. Alright, put me back in the tonal whiplash machine. Carol says that Nick didn't do nothing, but that double negative is about all she has to say.
Sorry to keep you waiting, boys.
Why is Emily here? I'm glad you asked. York invited her. George quickly leaves, saying that he's already had too much to drink and had a good man-to-man with York. Now that York and Emily are alone, he tells her that George seems to like her. Oh, he finally noticed? Well, she can spill the beans.
Okay. He did ask me out when I first came to town. I was still in high school.
What? He's a pedophile? We're just gonna move on from that? Okay, she mentioned that she moved here when she was 18, but still. York then asks Emily about her parents. Her father was always busy being a stockbroker, but she really admired her mother, although she passed away of cancer as soon as she graduated.
She gave this to me just before she died. I take it with me wherever I go. It's what I treasure most.
I'm sure she's very proud of you.
Nobody uses umbrellas in this town. Is there some kind of taboo? Emily says something about York not lying to them, and York goes back to the hotel for the evening to type up his report. The biggest thing to keep in mind is that the crime was extremely recent when York arrived on the scene, so whoever committed it had to be nearby. It was likely either Nick or Kaysen, but Kaysen was not really in a position to do anything. On top of that, Nick was unconscious, so it's hard to imagine he really did it. I guess that means Kaysen is the most suspicious, but once again, York doesn't seem to care. FK in the coffee! Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and flies swarming around York, because I did not change my clothes during all of this, and that is still a game mechanic. Emily simply continues their conversation from the bar, except this time, she makes York talk about his parents. His father was an FBI special agent and the first one to use criminal profiling, and suddenly, Emily wants to ask a question.
Who's Zack?
What kind of story do you have for me, SWERY?
Well, I've never seen his face, but he's always with me, and we discuss everything.
When did you become friends?
A long time ago. Back when I was a child. I was 7. I woke up one morning to hear my mother crying in the living room. It This wasn't normal, so I headed in to see her. My father was there pointing a gun at my mother. I was so scared. I closed my eyes, so I don't remember much more. But I do remember the words my father said to me. At times we must purge things from this world because they should not exist, even if it means losing someone that you love. When I came back to my senses, they were both dead. He shot my mother and then killed himself.
I can believe this. Zack awakened as some kind of coping mechanism. There's actually a plot reason for why Zack is a voice in York's head. Emily begins to comfort York by saying that there had to be some kind of reason for what his father did, and York actually agrees. He doesn't want his dad to be a senseless murderer.
Oh yeah, York, I forgot to thank you.
Thank me? For what?
You saved my life. If you didn't save me at the gallery, I would have died along with Diane.
No need to thank me for that. I'm pretty useless. I couldn't save Becky. I couldn't save Diane.
What did you just say? Useless? I was never expecting to hear you say that.
Did George opening up let York start to do the same? Thus, love is beginning to bloom, and York and Zack are now rivals in a love triangle. Also, Nick seems to be enjoying his stay at the local jail cell.
I'm going mad.
Since it's another deep slumber, that means it's another dream, but this time, it's the White Room. We stumble into Harry if he could stand up and didn't have a mask on. He gives a warning that there's no going back through that door.
Look carefully, boy. At times, we must purge things from this world because they should not exist, even if it means losing someone that you love.
So we can get confirmation that the boy in the dreams is in fact a young York. And hear some more incredible sound design. Waking up, York is still stinky but drinking some coffee. Before he can get a refill from Polly that he's comically keeping out of her reach on accident, he notes the stain on the paper. It's clearly telling him to hurry to Harry.
Mr. Morgan, what about the coffee? Don't you want a refill? Your coffee!
It's a long drive out to Harry's gate, which is also about a mile away from his house, but before we can start, Kaysen stops York in the lobby. He wants clarification that he's not a suspect. York explains that he's in the clear for now, and Kaysen rattles off even more dialogue that makes him very clean and very not suspicious whatsoever. FK and the coffee! Emily is already outside to alert York that Thomas has gone missing. I guess she was being polite and didn't want to wake up York. George wants to start a search and York gives the go-ahead. Wait, do they need permission for something that might not be related to the case? Before Emily can ask, York then announces that he's going to Harry's.
Are you really an FBI agent? I think the FBI would take a more logical approach to investigations.
But Emily, serial killer does not stay within the boundaries of logic. Thus, you can't hope to capture such a killer using only logic.
Hang on a second. I said that in my second Trails in the Sky video. Did my side tangent about villains not operating on normal logic actually come from a line in Deadly Premonition that invaded my subconscious? I think I was writing up that script around the same time I played the game. What have I become? Harry's house is about as eccentric as expected. I replayed this scene in my head about 5 times before I realized the room is spinning and not the piano. Harry seems to like games that involve reading a sonata number and then interpreting that in the most literal way possible. In this case, it indicates which guest rooms we need to steal umbrellas from and put them on statues. Wait, umbrellas? Harry demands some tea for them, which is a shame because York only likes coffee. Well, they insist that he looks at the sweetener.
Harry, Where did you get these seeds?
Harry reveals a riddle of where the seeds grow in town and demands that York come back after he finds said place. Well, that's an easy challenge. A crowded place that's silent. That must mean a bunch of dead bodies. The morgue, the graveyard. And as the camera pans over, it can't be. I know it's just the color on the ground, but are they being serious?
Is there a tree in the graveyard that drops red seeds?
Seeds. Red seeds. That tree does. And that one. And that one too. All red seeds.
Why do you even need to ask, York? Do you have eyes? The trees that make the seeds are just out in the open. How did it take this long to find them? And we have to get through a bunch of enemies that infinitely respawn in tight corridors. It wasn't until now that I got to learn that the enemies are still capable of blocking the way while they're in their dying animation. I thought the holding your breath trick could help, but no. This is just a massive pain and honestly, the hardest segment of the game for me. I guess I can say the enemies like grabbing York and shoving their hands down his throat, which is really weird. Harry really wanted to make sure that I worked for this one.
It's as if I was carefully carrying a bottle of water while walking in a pool.
That is an incredibly apt metaphor. Maybe they can bring it back to Harry's. Be grateful I cut out this 40-minute fetch quest. A different room rotation and a different puzzle to make 3 numbers involving statues, and York can finally talk to Harry for real in his extremely cool atrium. Something a TV show should do this. Welcome to Deadly Premonition's Big Twist number 1.
York.
Harry can talk at an audible level, he just chooses not to. He begins explaining that the red seeds are important, and that York is young and hasty and has to learn how to slow down. This is a prophecy, and it will matter later. He says they built the clock tower 50 years ago, and almost immediately afterwards, the raincoat killing started. York calls bullshit. The FBI has no documented murders in their files. Harry assures him that it is all very real, just like Diane, Anna, and Becky, and the murderer of today. In the past, it was all covered up, and who would be capable of covering up a bunch of murders?
The military.
Very good.
That's right, big twist number 2. There was a massive military cover-up. Harry knows what really happened because he was there. In fact, he's probably the only person who can tell York anything. Obviously, this current case can't involve the original Raincoat Killer, but there's a new one who's tied to the seeds. Both this killer and Harry realize that the red seeds are special. They tied the legend of the Raincoat Killer to the seeds by spreading a rumor. If you eat the red seeds and then kill someone, you will become immortal. This legend has evolved over time and likely convinced people to try the seeds for themselves. Every seed York has found, even before this case, is from this town. Except he immediately contradicts this by saying that they might be growing new trees by now. Or, I guess all the original seeds are from here. York says that they have no evidence of any of this being linked to his cases, but Harry reminds him that that's York's job, not his. Though he just said the records were erased, the previous sheriff did his own investigation because he didn't trust the military. If York gives Harry those documents, he will tell him absolutely everything he knows. So yes, the fetch quests were not enough for our monopolistic overlord. We have to get another MacGuffin to progress the plot. I took an SUV this time to get a fresh tank of gas, and that's how I found out to never drive these things in this version of the game. By version, I refer to whatever especially corrupted version happens to be running on my PC. Upon getting to the sheriff's department, York is accosted by George for believing anything Harry has to say. It's a crock of shit that the Raincoat Killer ever existed. Of course, York doesn't fully believe Harry, but surely they can let him have a look at the files just to confirm. George gives the okay while he focuses on real shit like finding Thomas. We are then greeted by a trip to the spooky realm. Thanks to some profiling, we can start to gather that someone has already tampered with the files. Someone who is also the culprit behind every incident. We get some 357 Magnum ammo, so I make a purchase at the portable shop. Upon revealing all this to George and Emily, they are completely dumbfounded. A cabinet has been broken into. Nobody should be able to break in except, George says it, Thomas. Thomas could have broken into the files, and you won't believe who's currently missing. York does not like to speculate, but demands that Emily gives him some coffee in an act of pure misogyny.
Zack, this is amazing. Even the taste of her coffee is thrilling, to say the least.
What?
Well, okay, taste aside, this cup certainly is perfect. George, Emily, we're going to Velvet Falls. There's something waiting for us there.
You heard the man. The coffee told him that the waterfall will be the place to go. George, continuing his change of heart, agrees with York's idea and happily brings along some fishing rods. You sure you like this man, Emily? I still don't really understand how fishing works in Deadly Premonition. My first time here, I didn't reel in a single thing because I never got a bite. I confirmed it's possible to even get a game over. I started mashing some directional inputs to feel like I was doing something, and then I got a couple bites. I don't think it actually did anything. It's like I'm a kid pressing the A button at the right time in a Pokeball animation to get it to catch. It just kind of makes it feel like you did something. But once you get a bite, it starts scrolling through a ribbon where you have to time it to stop on the files. It so graciously spawns everything from left to right, meaning it was basically impossible for me to do this on reaction. I had to memorize the pattern of present, shocked Emily, bass, shocked Emily, files, and I pressed stop on the bass, and it worked on the second try. I know I just jumped over the fact that York's coffee did in fact reveal someone stole the old files and threw them into this specific waterfall in an attempt to get rid of them. But I always make sure to trust the coffee. FK in the coffee! The files themselves contain the details of the rumor to gain immortality. Step 1. Make 4 human sacrifices on rainy nights after eating the seeds. Step 2. Make sure the sacrifice eat the seeds as well. Step 3. The sacrifice also cannot speak as they're being killed. Why are those notes part of the files? Who knows, but George and Emily can immediately confirm that it's Thomas's handwriting. And then York says he's taking the rest of the files to Harry, to which of course they immediately object. York simply says that officially, a murder never took place here in the past, so if the files go missing for a case that never happened, it's not a big deal. George sighs and hands the files over to York, saying that the search for Thomas may have just turned into a hunt.
I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it for myself. But Thomas?
It is amazing how much George has turned into a big help. So all we have to do to finish this fetch quest is by driving all the way back to the other side of town yet again. Hearing this music and seeing another new hallway means this painting is another prophecy of what is to come.
Zack, look. Emily.
Hope you enjoy multiple rooms where you have to clear out all the enemies. It is actually crazy how many combat sequences are backloaded into this game, but I can see why they did it. Without all this padding, it would be possible to blitz through the whole story in probably half the time.
Emily!
At times we must purge things from this world because they should not exist.
They're being really heavy-handed with this foreshadowing, huh?
Stop!
Despite not seeming to have left the spooky dimension, York opens a secret passage underneath the mansion leading into the ultimate Hacker Man room. Harry keeps his word and begins to tell York everything behind some soundproof glass.
Welcome, York.
For some reason, Harry wants York to know that this is his giant surveillance and blackmail room, where he can get whatever he wants, but not whenever he wants, because he's really good at timing. I assume it's all some kind of threat. Harry even reveals how much about the case he knows to make it clear how deep his info network goes. But anyway, he begins to tell his story.
I remember it as though it were yesterday, if you'll pardon the cliché.
If you haven't played the game before, buckle up. Harry left home because his parents were fighting and decided to see the new clock tower that had just finished construction. Well, it's more like he was drawn to it. He knew that there was a secret passage under the theater to get on top, and what he was greeted with was incredibly strange.
I moved closer and saw that they were fiddling with some kind of device.
Wait, I saw that guy on the side. It's FK. FK in the coffee. He gassed the town? 50 years ago?
When I got outside again, the purple fog was spreading. I covered my nose and mouth and ran home. I unconsciously counted the number of times the bell rang. After the 12th time, the bell did not stop ringing. It rang a loud 13th time.
Welcome to Big Twist number 3. The purple gas that we have been seeing throughout the game, from the mysterious shadows to York going insane, is a gas that drives people to murder when they inhale it. York must be extremely resistant, but not immune. But where is the gas coming from if they unleashed this bioweapon 50 years ago?
Resonated through my head. Kill! 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 Without thinking, I took a branch and attacked the man in the raincoat. For a moment, I didn't know what was occurring. The face beneath the hood was that of my father, painted with an expression I had never seen before. Hatred and angst. He clearly saw me, but that did not stop him from attacking me. He knocked me out, and I fell to the ground. The following morning, I awoke, surrounded by dead bodies.
In traditional tonal shift fashion, Harry somberly recalls how his mother died, likely killed by his father, whose unmatched strength became the legend of the Raincoat Killer. That gas seeped deep into the soil of the town. Little bits bubble up anytime it rains. That's why the murders happen in the rain, and why York sees the shadows. They're the remnants of the townsfolk who went insane and killed each other that are now part of the gas. That's why they turn into purple fog when they die. There's no way they actually tied all this together. That's also why Harry always wears the mask, meaning whoever the killer is someone extremely susceptible. As far as how this ties into the seeds, Harry can only guess that the seeds and the gas have similar effects on the nervous system. But are they the same thing? Who knows? Also, his hacking has revealed that Thomas has been located, and their conversation was pure nonsense that also never happened. Surely, Harry wants something in return for all of this.
York, at times we must purge things from this world because they should not exist. Even if it means losing someone that you love.
That still does not justify murder.
Remember this. Everything changes in form. There isn't a single thing that can maintain its shape for eternity. Overlook this fact, and you'll be making a big, big mistake.
Emily is here to take York to Thomas's apartment. I like how she immediately moves seats because she knows how York operates. What the hell is going on? This thing can actually kinda turn? Were all the cars bugged up until this point and this one's more normal? Add it to the pile of technical mysteries. George is yet again already at the scene. They got an anonymous tip and he went to confirm it for himself. He saw a light in the window in a silhouette, so it is definitely Thomas. They send in York all by himself but make it clear that he should shout whenever he needs some help. Thomas's apartment is an interesting place to investigate. York begins profiling in a setting that's not full of monsters. The only other time that happens is at the tree where Anna was found. I could speculate that this was the game before adding the combat, but after walking around a room and putting a few clues together, it's clear that Thomas was having relations with the Raincoat Killer. This is a pretty delicate subject matter that I'm sure Deadly Premonition will handle with grace. But York doesn't really care about that. He just doesn't like that Thomas is working with the killer. Emily and George bust in, then George declares the need to seal all routes outside of town. But York says Thomas must have unfinished business because he already would have left if that was the case. Neither of them listen to York as they speed off into the distance. The rain brings about another series of shadows. This is the only time when York can drive while in the spooky realm. Driving over enemies is one of the simple pleasures in video games. It's about as janky as expected, given how long their spawning animation is, but York knows where to investigate. Just follow the visions.
Is that Anna?
Oh, thank God we're back on foot. I was almost enjoying myself. We also get attacked by birds, which is something that doesn't happen anywhere else. The ghost of Anna leads York in circles, but eventually to one of the two bars in town. Something tells me there's going to be another chase sequence in this place. Just in case we didn't get enough, we also have to hide again. I can't even come up with anything else to say about this. Get me out of here.
Zack, this is a waste of time.
Just give me another jump scare and another emoji. After slogging through even more enemies that have more health than I would like, York finally... Another chase? Oh my God, I'm so tired of mashing. You know the drill. York does some profiling and finds out that Thomas came to the bar and used an ice pick to unlock a secret room, but then has to do another chase sequence just to make sure that we got the point. Back in some version of reality, York uses the trick to get into the secret room. It's a secret sex dungeon. York sees a pendant with the reverse peace sign, confirming that Nick is innocent, but before he can crack the case, Thomas cracks his head open, because he was actually hiding in the room the entire time. We cut to Carol singing again, except it's actually all happening in Thomas's head as York is passed out on the floor. I didn't think York could actually lose. Perfect time for a dream sequence where we play as child York chasing after his dad.
Dad? Dad?
Come on, boy.
This is probably what people imagine when they call something a walking simulator.
Are you okay?
Thank you, Emily, speaking in a slow voice. What do the visions mean? It's just so much to take in. Yeah, let's cut to the future again. The old man gives his granddaughter the charm that Emily had, so I assume it's York, but they have avoided showing his face for so long that, oh, it isn't old York. He's just been speaking in a funny way the whole time. That's a nice dream to have while getting tied up. At least York's not alone. He can talk to Zack about those dreams, which confirms that he has feelings for Emily. Oh, is that what it was about? I thought it was about starting up a maple syrup business. Meanwhile, it turns out that Kaysen saw York enter the bar and brought the police to the sex dungeon. Is there anything that proves York was here? Yes, it's his brand of cigarettes. Of all things they could use to track York, that one makes the most sense. Carol has also gone missing, but they're going to have to find York first. Kaysen mentions that Willie can track his scent, and Emily actually goes against George and decides to let Willie help. Emily rebelling like this is something that she hasn't done all game. George relents and reminds them both to stay alive. York would lose it if anything happened to them, and so we get to listen to a song that sounds like it was straight out of Jet Set Radio. This is the best tonal whiplash in this game. So we're treated to an incredibly long Follow the Leader segment where we play as Emily and stop every now and again so Kaysen can talk about himself. What a perfect time to bond about their love of dogs. While this is going on, we keep switching perspectives with York as he tries to reason with Thomas, saying he can move to a new town and start up a diner with his cooking skills. Thomas actually talks back, saying that York is kind, unlike him, referring to whoever the raincoat killer is. Thomas asks if York ever loved anyone. York says that he tries not to get close to people after what happened to his parents, but it seems like he's fallen for someone recently. Thomas says Emily is a nice girl, but York should stay away.
York, I think I've said too much.
I don't want to go over everything that Kaysen says to Emily about how he carried the family business and is a workaholic. It's not really important, other than showing that Emily and Kaysen slightly trust each other a little more. It also keeps intermixing York talking to Zack while hallucinating various people being in the room with him. Sorry, Nier Automata. Deadly Premonition did it first. This all continues as York affirms his love for Emily, and they close in on his location. The Clock Tower. Emily calls it into George because she's subverting the horror trope and enters into the spooky dimension. If you told me there was another playable character in this game that could go into the battle segments, I would have expected you to follow that up by saying that the moon is not real. What does this mean about these planes of existence? Can other people be dragged into them? Do other people actually experience them? I know back at the gallery, Emily didn't have to go through the same shadow realm that York did. Is this just York affecting reality around him? With my existential crisis ongoing, Thomas talking about everything being predetermined and that there's no way to make up for mistakes or change the past fits right in. She even has her own door opening animations.
You sure took your time.
We finally get to see Thomas's tattoo. It is pretty clear at this point who Thomas, Carol, and I guess everyone else is in a relationship with, but I'll wait for the game to explain it.
Oh, Thomas, you're sick. But there's still time. We can get you help. I'll help you.
You're too kind, Emily. As kind as a goddess. That's why he likes you. This town is soiled, and only you are shining in it.
That's right, Thomas. Let's just leave here together.
It was so much better back then. We had so much fun. Emily, that was before you came. I won't let you have him! You filthy pig!
Thomas is a boss fight. Emily gets to fight a boss that is mechanically different from every monotonous romp up until this point. It's not super amazing, but the fact variety exists at all is just so refreshing. Too bad it doesn't last very long. Is it the rain? Does it make people act in ways that they never would? Does it embolden their worst instincts? Maybe it can be overcome with the right...
I hate you so much!
It's gonna get gruesome again, so look away if you don't want to see it. That wasn't as bad as I thought.
Thomas!
Oh! Is that Thomas hanging there?
Shut the fuck up, Kaysen. After doing all the heavy lifting, it's Willie that frees York. Emily is justifiably distraught after everything that just happened.
York, are you okay?
I heard gunshots. Did you get our man?
York, Thomas is dead.
It's really funny that nothing exists until someone says that it does, and I don't want to reference Umineko twice in the same video. Before Emily can say anything more, York asks if she got the killer. Wait, isn't Thomas the killer? No, of course not.
Thomas was certainly neck deep in this. But he didn't kill the girls. He has concrete alibis for all 3 murders. He also doesn't have the reverse peace symbol on his back. These are basic facts that for sure you haven't forgotten.
Oh yeah, of course. The basics of the case.
If Thomas is not the killer, then there is only one other possibility. The only one with free access to the department files, and doesn't have an alibi at the time of the killings. Love G himself.
George?
That's right. Big twist number 4. The game had me thinking it was so obviously a red herring that I convinced myself this wasn't possible. George was the raincoat killer the entire time. It does make perfect sense for the time and place of all the murders. Like I said way earlier, George is always the first one on the scene and the first one to contact everyone else. Diane's case especially made it clear when he was acting all jumpy after he had just done the deed. Though in the back of my mind, it's still hard to accept. It might have been brief in retrospect, but George's change of heart felt too genuine to be an act. This is entering theory territory as the game doesn't give direct answers, but I like to think that George wasn't a killer originally. Even with all the abuse, he would just be a bit of a dickhead. Instead, he was in Greenvale, where the purple gas amplified his emotions to levels where he practically awakened into a second personality. The moment where he opens up to York is a breaking point, where he realizes he can no longer help himself. He wants somebody else to stop him. That would even explain why he cooperated with York in finding the missing documents that would implicate him. Also, it lines up with the very first incident where the killer dragged Anna's body out into the woods to pray before it, after it had stopped raining, as if the killer had some regrets. Hell, Thomas keeps saying that everything is beyond their control, and that really supports this idea. They need someone who's not from the town to break this cycle, because they're no longer capable of doing it themselves. Wait a minute, what am I talking about? I thought this was supposed to be a silly game with tonal whiplashes and bugs that make me chuckle. Here I am finding some kind of theme in its ramblings and extremely blatant foreshadowing. This means they have to go after George, even if he didn't have the tattoo.
Ah, right. He doesn't have a tattoo on his back, but there is a pattern there.
Holy shit. His scars form the symbol somewhere on his back, but it's hidden underneath all the extra marks. Shut up, Kaysen. They report back as if nothing happened because they can't make it obvious they're getting ready for their final showdown. Please continue to shut up, Kaysen. That's how I expect everything to look at this point, but it seems as though another murder has happened inside of the police department, requiring York to profile to deduce the location of a secret key in George's office. And where does this key lead us? You guessed it, that random jail cell where we found the squirrel key all the way back at the beginning of the game. And you thought it was just a silly little fetch quest when it clearly showed that there was something else going on in the room that York did not notice or investigate. Wait, Thomas was George's accomplice, which is why he left the key there. How the fuck? It requires a big push to open? It is worth noting that while the spooky realm makes the door much more literal, in the real world, it's just as extremely obvious. So with all the evidence, the profile makes it clear that Carol was dragged here by George.
Carol!
Wait, where's the horror stinger? Thank you. Wait a minute, does this mean that Emily has completely gained the power to enter the spooky realm after helping York? At first, Carol seems to write Thomas's name down to reveal who the culprit was, but she actually communicates that they were just substitutes.
Carol?
I half expected York to look at the camera and say that's why he normally works alone.
Kaysen!
No, York, don't do it!
Kaysen, quick!
Nah, well, I guess he is nearby and he said that he wanted to help.
York, you need to come too. She needs...
Time is of the essence, and York is the only one who can stop George. I don't remember Kaysen bringing his car here, but talking about continuity errors and deadly premonition feels counterproductive. Yeah, I definitely need a recap and a spiritual version of the Raincoat Killer to taunt me. I have to go through this place again? You know what they say, third time's the charm. Right after I got something slightly different, I had to wash it down with the same blandness that got us here. York then proclaims that he'll take Emily on a date once this is all over. Unlike our previous two-camera perspective moments, we get a different, third type of sequence. Kinda fighting the Raincoat Killer. Shooting him doesn't do anything other than waste ammo. But instead of running away to survive, York has to chase him. Once he gets close enough, the Raincoat Killer will move further in. And he doesn't do the emote. I'm just glad it's even slightly different. I'm never gonna say anything like that in this game ever again. We get to a big staircase to set the stage for the final fight, which is located somewhere that I don't know.
Welcome to Greenvale, Agent Francis York Morgan.
George explains that there are two treasures of the town, the Red Seeds and Emily.
When I first saw her, I realized I was such a fool. A fool for being satisfied by the petty girls from this countryside town.
Right, I almost forgot he propositioned the high school girl.
Shut it, York! You're the fool here.
George points out that York couldn't save anyone.
But me, unlike you, I am strong. I have power. My mother taught me, the strong, who can overpower others, is always correct and right.
In case we didn't realize just how deeply fucked up George is, he explains that he loves shooting deer because it's so different than humans. But when he shot a deer family at the graveyard, it didn't even faze them. He thought they were zombies, but when he cut open their stomach, he found the seeds. So the victims were able to seemingly survive long after losing tons of blood, and it's explained by the power of the seeds.
George, no Olympics for you. You'll fail the doping test.
I knew York had some one-liners in him. George powers up to his boss mode with the power of the Red Seeds.
This is the mark my mother gave me. Proof of power. The red tree.
The red tree? You've got that all wrong, George. That's the mark of child abuse.
Yeah, you take a drag of that cigarette, you suave man. It's another boss fight. I don't actually know what the intention is. I think you're supposed to try and get him to take a swing and then circle around back to shoot him, but I just kinda ran in a circle until I could take a shot. For an immortal guy, he seems particularly vulnerable to a .357 Magnum. This triggers a phase transition where George reveals that Carol was his other accomplice. That was pretty obvious by this point. She is Thomas's sister after all. She and Thomas helped him recruit Anna and Becky by feeding them the red seeds, which is apparently also a very strong aphrodisiac in addition to everything else it does, which lines up with Anna's diary entry that I found in that side quest. This reveals that Thomas is the one who told George the rumor about becoming immortal, and that's when their little sex cult turned into a murder cult. George then does his final power-up to reach Phase 2. I can't sample that song for too long. Is George, Titan's dominant, any different from his first phase? Not really, but he does do a very funny charge attack animation.
Mama, I didn't do anything bad. Why?
My theory of George still having an internal conflict is somewhat supported, but he throws a wrench into it by confirming that there was someone manipulating him. George is still looking for the pendant, which is what apparently confirms that he is the chosen one.
York! No, you haven't. Right to hold on to it.
Thanks to the power of all the one-liners, York has channeled enough Resident Evil 4 energy to parry axes with shotguns. Any gun will actually work.
How can this be? I'm divine.
No. You're a first-degree murderer. And I'm a federal agent.
With the sacred words being spoken, lightning is conducted through the axe and burns George to a crisp, revealing that this confrontation was all taking place on the roof of the sheriff's department, and there's still some more symbolism to be had. Yet again, we find ourselves playing as Child York, except we talk to everyone that exists in our dreams. All they have to say is that we can go back soon, and all the goddesses of the forest just laugh cheerfully. That includes Thomas. York's dad doesn't say anything too nice, but his mom says it's his way of complimenting him. Opening the way, we are yet again greeted by the White Room. This time with Harry and Emily, who's holding a Kaysen squeaky toy. Harry says that York can't go just yet, and he has to open the envelope first. York finds himself at the hospital, finding out he's been passed out for 34 hours, so he immediately asks how Emily is doing. Usha's confused. He asks if she was also hurt. What? But he told Kaysen to bring her here. Oh yeah, Kaysen brought York here and left him this envelope. It contains a map and a key. Usha merely wants to play some chess that clips into the camera slightly.
Zack, I have a bad feeling about this.
Hey man, I tried to tell you to trust the coffee. It's FK in the coffee. In your haste to take down George, you left Emily with the least trustworthy person in the entire tri-state area. Oh my god, it's the prophecy from Harry coming true. It's pouring rain again, and the spooky dimension now appears to be affecting everything. York finally puts it together that George only killed the people in Greenvale. He could not possibly be the mastermind for every case before this, as giant red glowing-eyed dogs spawn. And I think they're supposed to chase after the car, but they didn't seem to work properly. This is very clearly a callback to the dead dog found at the very beginning of the game. The game's being a bit coy, but the note is taking us to George's house, which if you visited at any point before this, you would know also has a red tree in its front yard. I did not do his side quest or show them, but George always explains that he still lives with and is a caretaker for his elderly mother. Although if someone is here, they're being incredibly quiet. York finds another secret passage, which shows how seamless these doors can be. York finds an extremely normal sanctuary that confirms George was stalking Emily, and asks the question if you have ever seen the classic film Psycho.
Meeting the mother is always a bad experience after killing the son.
It's not important that she's already dead, it's how she died. Big twist number 5. It was never a reverse peace sign. It was a tree, a symbol that always appears as part of these ritualistic killings. York then remembers what the coffee told him.
Kaysen. Forrest Kaysen.
That's right. Forrest Kaysen is the mastermind of the case of the red seeds, in a reveal that is only shocking to York.
Welcome to Greenvale.
I need to restate the flashing light warning because the lighting is pretty bad here. We find ourselves playing as the original Raincoat Killer of 1956, as the game then crashed on me. The layout is extremely confusing as it both clearly marks where to go, but blocks every logical way to get there. all while the town folks continue to rampage as Amazing Grace plays on top of it. I don't know what any of this means or why we're being shown this, but I'm sure at least one person had a spiritual experience while playing this segment. The real reason we get the flashback is to make it as obvious as possible that yes, the person we saw before at the clock tower was 100% Kaysen, who seems to have not aged a single day. Back to the present, everyone in town has gone into murder mode, including the twins.
Zack, the situation has gone way out of control.
Honestly, the attack animations from the townsfolk are funny, but so is taking a shortcut through an opening in the fire. Back to the White Room, where a voice once again makes it clear that there is no going back.
And finally you arrived, York.
George is dead. You've got nowhere left to run.
Kaysen is now more than happy to reveal his hand and explain that George was a symbol to represent small-mindedness, as well as making it clear that he follows some mystical rules. He did insist that York should see Emily to the hospital. If York hadn't failed the test, he wouldn't have been able to do this.
Like eating a full-course dinner that ends with the ultimate dessert.
Kaysen continues to stoke York's anger to try to get him to succumb to the influence of the seeds, but Emily wakes up in a haze and can't really tell her surroundings.
Oh, thank God. York,
Emily, no. That isn't me.
York, I'm sorry,
It's okay, Emily. Hurry, come over here. We need to get you to the hospital.
I can't. I can't go to you. I've been soiled.
No, that's not true. You have a heart that can't be soiled. No matter what happens to your body, you are still yourself.
York,
Oh, didn't I tell you? Getting these saplings to sprout requires a certain technique.
This is going to lead to some kind of ultimatum.
York, shoot me.
Emily?
Let me die. Please. York.
Zack, what should I do?
Only now can we learn the full truth of York's memories. The trauma he experienced caused it to be remembered imperfectly. His mother was also a victim of Kaysen, as his father was likely tracking him down. Just as Emily is doing now, she wished to be shot instead of having a tree grow out of her.
Let me die.
At times we must purge things from this world because they should not exist. even if it means losing someone that you love.
It's the line we've been hearing all game, but it's delivered in a way that completely changes the context. He was telling his child to do the right thing when the time came.
Okay, Zack?
Zack?
Francis. Zack. Morgan.
That's right. It's the final big twist number 6.
I saw you, Zack.
York awakened inside of Zack as a result of this traumatic event, a way to protect himself.
My name is York. Me and you will always be together. Okay, Zack? I'm you, and you are me. Now, give me your hand.
I remember. I traded places with York.
This is such an incredible twist for all the right reasons. The scar on Zack's face is much more pronounced, meaning that all those Scarface comments suddenly fall into place. We were always playing as Zack, yet he's always viewed himself as York. York doesn't have the giant scar that Zack had when he was young. So York always thinks that the people are talking about the one that's on his cheek. York is Zack's alter ego, who is the perfect FBI special agent and extremely cool. To childhood Zack. That's why York acts the way he does. He's the living embodiment of a child's idea of a cool movie star. That's why he's so invested in films, because York is literally based on them. How does Deadly Premonition have one of my favorite narrative twists in any video game? We are led to believe that we're playing as the voice in a man's head that makes him do things, but actually, we are just the guy doing things. And it's the person that we see all game who's just a voice in our head. This game rocks. All the terrible shit it put me through was worth it just for this.
York, what should I do?
And his voice sounds like it does in all the future scenes, meaning that we were watching Zack the whole time. Zack can still hear York's voice. He says that it's his, one of 3 choices to make, which only one is the right answer. It's not shooting Kaysen, I can tell you that.
Zack, you made the wrong choice.
The correct one is not the choice I expected.
There are some things in this world that must be extracted, no matter what. Even if that means losing someone that you love. I can't do it. I can't kill Emily.
I'm sorry, Zack.
Stop.
Unlike the events of the past, Emily manages to break the cycle herself.
I wanted to be with you.
Emily, no. You aren't supposed to go over there. That's not the way. Come back, Emily.
It's finally clear. These visions are some peek into some kind of afterlife.
Hey, stand up, Zack. It's up to you now.
Or does this represent accepting reality? Zack leaves York behind along with everyone else who dies. He doesn't need to hide away anymore. He can solve the case without York's help.
Why
two? How did you get out of the Red Room?
Kaysen then transforms into a big scary monster. Look at that jiggling. The giant bouncy monster is the least surprising thing that could happen at this point. I think you're supposed to shoot his arm to get him to fall down, which then triggers him to bounce on the stage where you have to dodge that, and he falls on the ground and becomes vulnerable. But using the 9mm makes this a very slow fight. Though, would this really be a one-phase boss fight? This chase goes on for 4 minutes. I know because I checked in my editing software. 4 minutes of mashing the buttons to run with occasionally dodging a ranged attack or when he gets close. My fingers got so tired that I tried swapping the two hands, but that only made it harder to react to the QTEs. Near 4 minutes of constant mashing is pretty hard if you've never tried it before. It's all just a monument to Zack's endurance. Yeah, I'm sure him falling off the top is going to be the end of it. Okay, not even Zack is fooled by that. It's true final boss time, featuring even larger Forrest Kaysen.
Kaysen, I've been meaning to tell you this. You're one crazy guy.
Not as cool as York, but he has the right energy. Kaysen's weak point is the doll that he holds in his hand. He only has a couple attacks which are both relatively easy to dodge.
Take this and die!
It was at this point in my first playthrough where I was really feeling fatigued. Remember, my aiming was bugged for the whole game, where I could not get it to aim far beyond wherever the gun originally oriented itself. Aiming down sights will just aim towards Kaysen's center, but by aiming as far left as possible, I could occasionally hit the doll and chip away his health bit by bit. It was incredibly long and tedious, but I also remembered what game I'm talking about. I truly thought I had made it through the worst of it until Deadly Premonition revealed its final trick up its sleeve. Once Kaysen is down to the last little bit of health, he will turn around and make the doll disappear. Where could it possibly be? Is it in the big pocket that sticks out as if it has something in it? Kaysen will then slam the ground to give an opportunity to climb on his shoulder in reference to Shadow of the Colossus, and this is where I got soft-locked. When pulling out the gun, Zack would aim at Kaysen's face, and it was impossible to aim far enough to the side to hit the doll. Keep in mind, I had tried basically every recommended fix for aiming earlier, and nothing worked. Because of how much it slowed down these bosses, it had been a bit over an hour since my last save. Even trying something like a different compatibility mode wasn't going to come at a small cost. I kept trying to hit the doll anyway without restarting, but eventually had to accept reality. It truly was impossible content. That's where my original playthrough ended. Until I had a silly idea. The internet is not the easiest place to search these days for reasons I don't want to get into, but against my better judgment, I went to YouTube, and I searched Beating Deadly Premonition Final Boss with the aiming bug. This is the closest I've ever been to believing in miracles. A video uploaded by user Alpha Boot was at the top of my search results with a few hundred views. Deadly Premonition, the director's cut, last boss with the aiming bug. It's like I stumbled into a parallel dimension containing the old internet where I could find short tutorials for trivial things I got stuck on as a kid. It was in this moment where I finally understood Deadly Premonition, because I found my own Francis York Morgan, offering me a helping hand in my time of need. The solution is trivial, Zack. The spread on the SMG is so bad, by aiming all the way in the corner, one of the stray bullets will land the final blow. Godspeed, York. Obviously, This video is uploaded by a real person, but whoever you are, thank you for allowing me to finish this absolute joy of a video game. I couldn't have done it without you.
It's because you don't understand humans.
Fuck yeah, Zack. This causes everyone in town to stop beating their wives and return to their senses. The clock then rings a normal amount of times. Zack speaks to Emily in the afterlife, telling her not to wait for York to propose because he's such a shy guy. What a beautiful way to represent how much Kaysen doesn't get to traumatize Zack ever again. This is Deadly Premonition though, so we have to get a few pieces of the epilogue. Zack finds himself back at Harry's place, staring at that picture that I originally thought was only part of the spooky world. Was it truly all predetermined as Thomas said? They're not going to give us an answer, but they will reveal that Harry's last name is not Stewart. It's Woodman. He was George's father. He loved his wife, but she had gone mad and abusive. Rather than trying to help her, he ran away, leaving her to abuse George, much like how Zack's own father ran away from his responsibilities. Are the red seeds actually a representation of trauma? By planting those seeds and allowing them to fester, it created George, who went on to kill 5 people and inadvertently 1 more? If we never confront the evil of our past, it simply turns into a new evil in the present. Zack is the only one who is able to confront his past and accept what happened. Harry's greatest sin isn't buying up the whole town and blackmailing everyone in the world. It was abandoning his family when they needed him most. At least, that's my interpretation, and I think I've been looking at too much artwork of anime catgirls. Let's just get the true ending. They would end this game in a car. That's basically where half of it takes place.
Hey, Michael. Mind stopping the car for a moment?
Very well, Mr. Francis Zack Morgan.
Zack finds the twins out in the wilderness with their grandpa. Grandpa explains that the twins still don't think the girls are dead.
Give it to him yourself. He's right next to you. Emily kind of told us to give this to you.
Emily said it's a present for Zack.
Thank you. Where did you get this?
Emily asked us to give it to you. See? She's over there.
There's another Zack there too. You're twins, just like us.
Emily couldn't give it to you herself. She said she's too embarrassed. So, she asked us to hand it to you.
Emily really likes you, Zack. She really likes you.
No, she doesn't. Not me. She really likes that guy York, the guy you see standing next to her.
Zack doesn't seem to have retained his power to glimpse into the afterlife, as evidenced by him not seeing anything, but he leaves some parting words, sharing that George wanted Anna's body to be found, and my theory that he wanted to be stopped is made slightly stronger. Then, the game allows you to drive around town as a victory lap. If this was a 100-hour JRPG journey, I'd probably indulge it, but I'm scared the game's going to crash again. Zack will talk in the car, making the assumption that York can still hear him, but York doesn't respond. Once he gets back to the hotel, Zack falls asleep, and York gives him a parting message.
And this is goodbye, Zack.
Thank you for everything.
Good night, Zack. And sleep tight.
As Zack checks out, we can see a photograph with Kaysen clearly on display that Zack never paid attention to, confirming that Kaysen was real, or at least I hope so. Zack walks out of town because his car is still totaled and never repaired, and he puts away his cigarette without lighting it because that's only something York would do. Roll credits. Okay, not yet. Old Zack finishes his story, saying that Emily never died and became a goddess instead.
What kind of person is York?
York is a real nice guy.
And that beautiful stinger rolls in the credits. Though we can still hear some dialogue, Zack's granddaughter is called down for dinner, and noticeably, she has been called by the name Emily all the way up until she goes downstairs and says her name is not Emily, and that Zack seems to be losing his memories, even though we also heard her mom call her Emily. Let's not think about this too much. After the credits close, we are greeted by York and Emily going on that date in the diner that he mentioned all the way at the end of the game. As everyone gathers, the familiar humming of Amazing Grace starts up as we see Zack finally joining them. Zack passes away of old age and joins York and everyone else in the afterlife. Nope, it can't be enough.
Zack, it's great to see you again.
York says something that implies he might be an entity beyond human comprehension and tells Zack to investigate an incident near New Orleans. We get a prompt, all of which boils down to Zack agreeing to investigate more. For continuity's sake, because there is a sequel that came out 10 years later, this scene happens long before Zack dies, and don't think about it too hard. I unironically love this game. Deadly Premonition is a pure work of art for all the right and wrong reasons, heavily making fan tributes to source media that almost makes me wonder if they had their own ideas until it manages to completely transcend them. Broken gameplay that when bugged seems perfectly normal and is nearly impossible to get to run in the first place. And so many backwards ideas from established norms with its unnatural dialogue and completely 180 tonal whiplashes that I think actually enhance the experience. That, combined with its use of surreal imagery and lack of explanations for anything supernatural, will stick with me for the rest of my life, along with a soundtrack that will not stop playing inside my head. It also contains one of my favorite video game meta-narrative twists, up there with some of the best of something like Zero Escape. I mean that as a compliment. I'm convinced that a life simulation murder mystery game is a great concept, maybe one that could be a bit less bogged down by tedium and bugs, but if it wasn't, it wouldn't be Deadly Premonition. My coffee told me so. At the center of all this discussion is how much I like York. Everyone needs a Francis York Morgan to reference cheesy 80s movies and tell us that we are just too smart to get the answers wrong. I'm not sure if he's a good FBI agent, but he's certainly the best conversation haver. The game can be considered so bad it's good, but it's the earnestness that makes it enjoyable, not the stuff that doesn't work 90% of the time. It's kinda like making something for your parents as a kid. It doesn't have to look nice to know it came from the heart. What better message could Deadly Premonition possibly leave us in its final moments? Life really is beautiful. Now let's get out there and watch Twin Peaks. A big thank you as always to my patrons for making these videos possible, as well as everyone making donations on that website that is not pronounced like coffee. Happy holidays, travelers, and look forward to whatever I make next.